Munike.
What?
Whatever. Shh.
Is.
If you had a TV when you were a kid, then you may remember these guys. The two-headed monster hung out on Sesame Street and helped us all spell out words. They separated the word into its individual phonemes, and ever slowly the pieces came together until you could read the whole word. This is how we read when we are small children. We had to look at each word and consciously go through the task of trying to make sense out of it. What I want to show you is that reading involves connecting systems of understanding that we use automatically, but simultaneously are developing higher levels of information. By the time we are learning words, we have already established a number of fundamentals to our cognitive system. Here's a simple example. Let's start right at the beginning. Light beams fly from the sun through space, bounce off a word made of a combination of light and dark areas on a book, and those light rays fly through the air, pass through your eye, get translated into electrical impulses, sent to your brain, and deciphered into a word symbol, in this case the word ambulance. The word is separated into its phonemes. The phonemes are then related to the separate letters that created them. The letters and phonemes have their own separate connections to each other. Each letter is in turn defined from a set of typefaces. It's not something we think about, but we have managed to set up a system that not only recognizes the letter A, but also a multitude of variations of the same symbol. The typefaces themselves are separated into a series of strokes that make up the letter's shape, and these lines are defined by our recognition of edges. This is a visual recognition system. You may not think about it, but you have somewhere along the way figured out that a white line on a dark background is the same as a black line on a white background. Now back to the start, because this network goes both ways. There are higher connections at work at the same time we tap into the fundamentals. Once we see a word, we are already tying it to an abstract concept, the idea that the word represents. And this abstraction in turn links to a variety of points of knowledge already linked to that concept. These other concepts have a series of relationships to a whole other set of related words and ideas that then get reinforced by seeing the first word. Every time a word is read, anything even remotely related to the original word will receive at least some activation, as if the lights on a city in darkness are all lit up at the same time. And this is an important point to make. Neural networks operate with a feedback mechanism as well. In other words, the firing of synapses goes both ways, and mistakes in logic circuits force the pathways to change depending upon the outcomes of choices our brain makes. Certain lines get reinforced. They become strong by getting fired through more than once. Perhaps it gets reached through more than one pathway. The neglected ones end up being weak. Your brain is selecting preferred pathways, preferred ways to think, a beautiful system of self-correction. And this is just for word comprehension, and does not even begin to talk about sentence construction, grammar, social context, which would then make this tree around a single word seem almost insurmountable in all that it links. But your brain does just this. These layers all exist at the same time and are utilized simultaneously when we learn a word. At a certain point, many of these things become automatic. We don't stop and look at a word and get confused if it's written in Courier as opposed to Arial. They are different, but our mind has already established a set of neural pathways that makes this process simple, and we no longer require conscious effort to decipher such things. This is what we mean when we talk about the optimization of the brain that I spoke of prior to this video. We are setting up a way of getting at the information that works the best for us. So let's talk about that. What is going on when we're older? When we no longer go through all these steps and they have become automated? I want to have you look at a few things and then let's talk about it after. Turn the sheet around and I want you to read what's there, just nice and fast, don't think too much. Read it out loud. Read it.
This doesn't seem very hard to read, but none of the words are spelled correctly.
I think what is going on is that the first and last letters have been kept in place, but all the letters in the middle have been mixed up somehow I can still understand it.
You may have already seen this. It made the rounds for a while as some email spam. It claims that it comes from a Stanford psychological study, but nobody actually knows where it's from. What is obvious, though, is that it works every time. What's going on here? I mean, it's a neat trick, but what is this telling us about how we read? Not only are we not tapping into each layer of reading comprehension, but our mind doesn't even need to see the actual word in order to read it. I want you to look at a game I invented some time ago. I call it The Game. You can even play it yourself. The rules are simple. Here it is, step by step. Sitting opposite the other person you want to play with, you announce, "Let's play the game." Now, you may be sitting in your living room or at a coffee shop or maybe the kitchen table. It doesn't matter. Take the items lying around you. They could be salt shakers, some paper, a lighter, a pencil. It doesn't matter. Take those items and now deliberately place them in front of you, as if you're setting up a playing field of some sort. How you set it up doesn't matter. Just make it appear deliberate. Now, look at your friend and say, "Ready?" And then say, "Your move." Now, I have played this game hundreds of times. I usually don't have to say anything more after this. You may get the occasional, "What do I do?" But simply repeat "your move," and they will accept the situation and begin playing the game. This is what is fascinating about the whole thing. You will end up playing a game. I've had games that have lasted half an hour. Sometimes there's some sort of geometric relationship game, a sort of chess-like thing. Sometimes the functions of the playing pieces get involved. Sometimes the limits of the game go beyond the apparent playing board. I have seen players work together in some sort of construction exercise. But, and this is the strangest aspect of the game, you will both know when the game is over and which one of you has won and which one of you has lost. How can this be? No rules were established. In fact, nobody understands even what the playing pieces represent. On top of that, no player knows if the other person is even playing the same game. In order to really talk about this, I want you to look at this picture. What you are looking at here begins to illustrate what is happening when we read the scrambled words, or when we play the game. This is an example of object permanence. Object permanence is a cognitive perception logic that is closely related to our memory. We fully acquire it sometime a little before 2 years of age. It's the knowledge that objects exist even when we don't see them. Now, at this point, we don't even realize we are doing it, but a baby would think that this guy has no legs. This is partial pattern recognition. We don't need all the information to still recognize something. The optimization of our brain has allowed us to speed through a lot of things that were once needing our complete attention. But this isn't the case anymore.
Reading is a very, very intriguing process. The better your language ability, the more handicaps you can carry into the reading process and get away with it. Okay? Because really, a good reader doesn't have to read every word.
Look at the game again. How can two people play a game with no apparent rules? Because we have given enough information for the rules to be invented. We tell them we are playing the game. This immediately fires synapses linking to other ideas related to game playing that we have already learned. We have set ourselves opposite them. We have a playing board. We have playing pieces, and we tell them your move. Each of these things has with them some trigger to more and more information that narrows down our definitions of what is happening. And with each new move we make, we are learning the rules and incorporating them into what we have already decided is going on. The brain is in effect playing a complicated game of 20 questions. We have a great capacity for invention, and this facility for invention can be both a good and bad thing when we talk about reading, specifically among the skilled reader. We can read a sentence of scrambled words because we have hit a level of reading ability where our brain has sped up the process so that we no longer even take the time to actually decipher the word. Our brain has found a way to read just the pattern of the word shape, the proximity of letters or other words, and pick the word it should be rather than actually being certain. Marianne Wolf, a professor of child development and the director of the Center for Reading and Language Research from Tufts University, talks about this in an interview.
Words. So when you think about reading, you want to think about a circuit of parts. The parts are growing up from from infancy onward, but between 5 and 7, our job as a society is to help integrate those parts and make an ever more automatic system so that the child can ultimately give time to thinking about what they're decoding.
This is what we're doing. It's a clue to what we should be doing as teachers. We're not just teaching words or simple facts. We're not creating a data bank, so to speak. We're trying to teach context. When dealing with a skilled reader, we are now interested in widening the scope by reinforcing the logic pathways. And word recognition and word context is created through a combination of repetition, reinforcement, and fun. Making it fun. Keep in mind that the computational model shows that our pleasure centers are directly linked to our problem-solving nodes. It's part of our wiring. So many things we do are related to enjoying ourselves. It helps us learn. We accomplish a goal, we become happy, and that neural connection is made stronger. So we are deeply affected by the emotional coloring of our experiences. I'll finish with one last thought. John Stuart Mill was shocked as a young boy to realize that there were a finite number of notes one could play on the piano. This meant to him that eventually we were going to run out of new music. But he wasn't fully thinking it through. Say you have 8 notes to choose from. I'll stick to only 1 octave for now. And you want to see how many melodies you can get. Well, you can get 64 melodies made of 2 notes. 512 of 3, 4,096 of 4, 32,768 of 5, and on, but stop. This is only if, for every melody, it's made up of notes of the same duration. As soon as you add in 2 different lengths, say melodies made up of only quarter notes and half notes, then the numbers of, say, 10-note melodies increases to 1,152,921,504,606,846,976 possible arrangements, and if you add 8 notes to the mix, then, well, now my calculator is broke. This is only taking about 8 notes with 3 types. We have 100 billion neurons all connected to each other in our head. There are more possible combinations than there are atoms in the known universe. So really, we have just started to skim the surface.